The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother. In today's Gospel, Jesus explains that those who follow him and in their lives live the will of God are even closer than the neighbors he speaks about elsewhere. They stand not as friends and neighbors, but as his brother, sister, and even mother. One cannot be any closer than these. Indeed, all who are baptized are joined by their baptism to the very divine life of Jesus Christ. We are rebirthed into Christ. For this reason, Jesus says, we are brother, sister, mother. We must become closer and are made closer through this. We are even closer in spirit than blood can make us. We who are a part of the Christian family have a deeper connection to one another and to Christ than even DNA can render to us. We're family with God as the head and the church as our mother. And all of us have a deep responsibility one to the other. To what lengths does Jesus say to us elsewhere in the Bible? To what lengths does he say that we need to go for a neighbor? How much further should we be expected to go for a brother and a sister, and indeed for a mother? Does one not go as far as he can for a neighbor? Indeed. And ideally it should be so that one should go as far to assist anyone who might require his aid. But in truth, how much more driven are we to work for our family, to bring the help to our family? So Jesus says that we are family, and especially so those who follow the will of God. But what is this will that he says? What is it Jesus is so keen to have us do? We know that we are born into the Christian family through baptism, but Jesus says it's only through the will of God that we come into this special relationship. Jesus tells us very plainly that we must love God with our heart, our soul, and our mind, and to love our neighbors ourselves. This is the great commandment. This, then, is the path of Christian perfection. You may know that recently Pope Francis made a trip to the Philippines. At a gathering of youth, he said to them that the most important challenge for us in our daily lives is to learn how to love. This, he said, is how we become saints. Jesus teaches us how to love by knowing each person himself, and he sees them as valuable to the Father. Likewise, it is our responsibility to look on our brothers and sisters, to look on our neighbors, and to see in them that they are desired by God. Each of them is chosen and created by God. And in them is the divine life of Christ himself. We are called to look on people the way Christ does, and in this way to love them as Christ loves. The problem for us is often that we can allow things to get in the way of this love. How often do we take great offense in small things? It can be so easy for someone to break through the little defense that we have, the little patience, and then for all to fall apart. Do we hold grudges? These are the sorts of things that start wars among us, by letting our small patience to be worked through, to hold grudges, not to forgive, war among us. These things, once they're in our mind, they sit and they fester. But be quick to forgive. This is what we're called to. The way of Christ is the way of forgiveness. Forgiveness is both the starting point and the result of love. At times it can seem strenuous enough to tolerate our neighbor. That you love your brother and sister Christian is not always just going to happen. But this love has to be decided upon, must be chosen. It's the beginning of love. When we choose to forgive, the opportunity is created for both the one who's forgiven and the one who forgives to grow in reciprocal love and friendship, not only with each other, but with God above. And living together in this reciprocal love, we can see each other as a product of God's desire. And therefore, it's not only the beginning of love, but the result. Because when we love one another truly as God would have us, forgiveness comes from this. You see, in this truth, we see each other as the product of God. When Jesus teaches this, saying that each of us, when we do the will of the Father, is to him brother, sister, and mother, he's not excluding or replacing Mary from the system. Rather, she is the perfect example to which he's directing everyone. Mary is held up for us as an exemplar of patience and of virtue. She readily receives all who seek her aid. She is the perfect mother for Jesus. She helps him along. She supports him. She forgives him when he disappears from her and angers her as a mother. She's the perfect mother. She follows him and supports his mission. In this Christian journey, we have to let Mary teach us what it means to be the family of Christ. Now, these things about which I have spoken, to live the love of Christ and to forgive, these aren't easy to put into practice as perhaps it seems they should be. That's our sacrifice. That is the sacrifice God wants of us when we become Christians. The one who seeks to do God's will and to act according to his justice is both ready to love and to be loved, to forgive and then to be forgiven. This is ultimately what God has directed us to through Jesus Christ. Whoever does the will of God, says Jesus, is my brother, my sister, and my mother. And this will is love.